everyone, and welcome to this evening's webinar. We are very privileged to be speaking with our friends on Norfolk Island. And this is one part of Australia that I have not been to, so I'm very much looking forward to hearing all about it and putting my dreaming hat on, and when we can travel, jump on a plane and come visit. So my name is Caroline. I've got over 20 years experience in working in the tourism industry, predominantly with the inbound market, bringing international guests into Australia. But now also working in the domestic market, which has been fantastic to be involved in the last few months since things have been a little bit different. Quick bit of housekeeping. All of our listeners are muted, but we certainly want to hear from you. So there's a Q&A and a chat box at the bottom of the screen. So by all means, pop your questions in there and we'll endeavour to answer them as we go. We've had some pre-questions when people signed up to the webinar, which is fantastic. Anything we don't manage to answer tonight, we'll get back to you after the webinar. Now, what away you Yorley? I'm not sure if I quite got that right. But anyway, trying the local liquid. So I'll just go around and introduce our panellists that we've got with us this evening. So we've got Tanya Anderson. Tanya works for the Norfolk Island Tourism, so we'll get to say hi to Tanya very soon. We've got Sue Ellen Quinta, and she is the General Manager of the Bounty Escapes Company. And we've got David, who works at Ocean Breeze, which is accommodation on Norfolk Island. So, and of course, we've got Simon from Wild Diaries, who's managing all the techo stuff inside there. So I might start with Tanya quickly. The hat on your head, what relevance has that got to your destination?
Yeah, for sure. So it was hanging on the wall at the back here, but I'm very proud to wear it. So as a Norfolk Islander, we are descendant from the Pitcairn Islanders, and they are descendants from the famous mutiny on the Bounty. So that was English sailors and Tahitian women, and they settled on Norfolk in 1856. So they brought with them lots of traditions and a unique culture. And these lovely hats, they're called our Bounty Day hats. They're locally made. I can't claim I made this one, but a friend made it for me. It's all done by hand, and we wear these with pride. Bounty Day is celebrating when the Pitcairn Islanders arrived here in 1856 from Pitcairn Island. So Bounty Anniversary Day is a little bit like your Australia Day, and these are one of the things that people make here. So plaited hats and baskets, that's part of our tradition and unique culture.
Fantastic, thank you. Were you born on Norfolk Island? Or?
I was born on Norfolk. I did live in Australia for a little while, so I think maybe I do have a little bit of a twang there. But my dad was an Islander, and I've lived here all of my life except for about 6 or 7 years. And Watuwe Yorli, you said it perfectly, and that's part of our local language. So I've worked at the Tourist Bureau for over 20 years, absolutely love my job. Norfolk is such an amazing, beautiful, easy destination to promote, and happy to be part of this evening.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Sue Ellen, do you want to just introduce yourself and give us a little brief synopsis of what your business does?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm Sue Ellen, everybody, and welcome. And if you haven't been to Norfolk Island, you need to come. And we're all of us here on this webinar tonight can look after you in some way or another. I am a 7th descendant from the Mutiny Bountyers, and I've been working in tourism since I've left school. However, I did tourism in Australia and returned home about 23 years ago now, and still been involved on Norfolk Island in tourism because that's all I know. And we love meeting people and everything. So with Bounty Escapes, we do everything from picking you up from the airport, taking people for an introduction around the island, and also helping them with many activities that can be done on the island. There is so much to do.
Fantastic, sounds wonderful. I see we've got Glenn working his way into the webinar, so we'll get to Glenn in a minute. But David, we might just jump across to you. Just explain a little bit about Ocean Breeze and your role on the island.
Well, obviously my name's David. I own a few accommodation places and hire cars. You do need, even though the island's tiny, it's only 8 by 5, you definitely need a car to get around. And Ocean Breeze is just an accommodation place. It's 12 self-contained units. on the Queen Elizabeth Drive, which overlooks the Phillip and Emily Bay. Beautiful place to stay, great views of the sunset. So it's, Norfolk Island's quite magnificent. I'm not a Norfolk Islander, I'm Norfolk Island by marriage. But I've been, coming back and forth to Norfolk for, 15 odd years, and settled over here with my family about 4 years ago, and got into the tourism industry.
Fantastic. Now I'd like to welcome Glenn. Glenn, can you hear us? You might be having some internet problems.
I can hear you. Sorry, I actually.
Glenn, you might need to put a light on in the room. You're looking a little bit scary there.
It's a little freaky. Sorry.
Hi, welcome, Glenn, to the webinar. Just done the rounds of introducing all of the others, so now we'll come to you quickly. So you're from Burnt Pine Travel on the island, and just give us a brief background on yourself and what Burnt Pine Travel does, please.
Oh, we've lost Glenn again. Glenn, we've lost your we can't hear you again.
Sorry. Burnt Pine Travel is the airline agent on Norfolk Island for Air New Zealand and also Qantas, and we also do the ground handling of the airport as well. So sort of the airline representatives. Myself, I've been in tourism for about 30 years to do with Norfolk. And yeah, Norfolk born and bred, grown up here all my life.
Fantastic.
Spent a bit of time on Pitcairn Island, so yeah, with the heritage and culture, and we want to try and promote our lovely little island to your customers.
Absolutely, that's what we're aiming to do. One question, the pre-question we had was, is Norfolk Island open at the moment, and from what access points can people come from? So does someone want to jump in and answer that for me?
Yeah, Tan, do you want to do that, Doug?
I'll talk to that.
Oh,
so actually as of today, so we're still dealing with the COVID crisis over here as well and the implications for that. So at the moment, there's only 2 flights a week, one from Brisbane and one from Sydney. And that schedule is currently going through till March next year. So what that means is there's limited visitors coming to the island. Out of New South Wales, so we have a flight from Sydney, but if you're on that flight from Sydney, you actually have to self-quarantine for 14 days. So there's not too many visitors on that one. However, out of Queensland, that's not the case. So most of the small amount of visitors we're getting at the moment is actually coming out of Queensland. And that will probably remain the standard for airport. But yeah, Tan might be able to fill you in on that.
Yeah, no, just on that, Glenn. So with the flights from Brisbane, anyone around Australia that's not in a hotspot can travel to Norfolk via Brisbane. So when we say visitors from Brisbane are able to visit Norfolk, it's not just Queenslanders. You can come from anywhere in Australia, providing it's not a hotspot like Victoria and Canberra, I think. And we are monitoring that. We have an emergency management team. They're monitoring that all the time. So we're all, like Glenn said, we're all very conscious of COVID. We're all doing the right thing, but we rely on tourism, and in a safe way, we are welcoming tourists back slowly but surely.
That's good to hear, because there's some places in Australia still struggling to get any access to tourists, and so it's great to hear that at least the states that aren't in hotspots can get there via Brisbane. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So any of our listeners out there they're looking for
no passports required if you're an Australian resident. You can travel here on photo ID. So you don't need a passport if you're an Australian resident. You can use a driver's license.
Okay. With many states, we have to go online and fill out an application to travel to somewhere. Do you have an online application process?
Yes, we do. So there is an entry pass that people need to apply for. You can only apply for it 3 days out from travel, because it's obviously questions about your health. It's kind of formatted on a little bit similar to the Queensland Health entry pass, and any of us can email that link, or if people are tuned in, it is on our council website as well. If you need that address, I can give you that as well. So yeah, it's all online.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think everything is contactless and online these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sue Ellen, we might jump back to you. Some of the activities available on the island. I know I was doing some prep work earlier. There was an enormous list of most amazing sounding activities. Do you want to just give us maybe 3 or 4 key ones people to consider?
Yeah, well, look, there's things from nature-based tours right through to obviously history. And we've got 2 lots of history here on the island. There is, like the sign I've got behind me, we do have a Convict settlement, which I think, Caroline's sort of behind you in your background there. And yeah, so we've got a history there. And then also what Tom was talking about in 1856 was when the Pitcairners arrived here. So we've got lots of tours to do, from bushwalking to cycling. There is obviously, if you're interested in your convict history and actually even researching whether you've got ancestors here, we have a research centre here on the island that you can go in there and type in the information that you know, and if they were here on Norfolk Island, etc., they can print out information that's run by the Norfolk Island museums, and a lot of people take advantage of that. However, there are so many tours. Look, the one that we find is popular is obviously the Commandant's dinner behind. It's a theatre dinner that happens, and you learn in a fun way about the history. Some past commandants come to the dinner and you learn. Another favourite one of ours is called 1856, the Untold Story, because we felt that there were a lot of tours on the island that covered the convict history, and we wanted to have a voice really for the Pitcairners or the Norfolk Islanders that came. And it's a beautiful new tour, and hear that the people who tell the story about their ancestors as they go through the Kingston area there, when they arrived in 1856, they were all given a home. The families were given a home to live in when they first arrived. So there is a history that overlaps there, and you'll hear them actually talk with a bit of a Norfolk lingo. And at the end of the tour, you can actually hear a beautiful recording of our elders that have passed away, obviously, speaking the real Norfolk language, and it's beautiful, really broad, and it's lovely. So probably they're my 2 picks of ones that are from one from each history. And of course, then we've got things like progressive dinners, which is a real unique thing. You probably haven't, some people go, oh, we used to do that years ago for our church group or something like that. But we still have them, and people go, you can go to families' homes and have dinner, and you move along for each course, and they'll tell a story about their history or their family home, and to things of having our fish cooked our island way, which is deep fried. We love everything deep fried and with cream, on a cliff top, and watching sunsets and things with our local dishes and things as well. So there's so much for, really, there is for, you'll be, even down to glass bottom boats. So everyone will find something at least that they'd be very interested in.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
And I was just going to say, maybe Sue Ellen, would you also mention the Colin Mccully house tour, because that's quite popular too, I think.
Oh my goodness.
For Australia.
Yeah, I missed that.
Oh no, I was just thinking everything you said, like there is so much here.
Terrible.
But for Australians, I mean, that's really, really popular, isn't it? Like, yeah.
True. So we have the Colin Mccully. We go to her home. Someone that used to own the company many years ago was a personal friend of hers, and she made a promise to this person, Les, that when she passed away, that she would allow people to come through her home and see where she wrote these most amazing, documentaries and books and everything she's got. So we go into her home, and it's amazing. That's all I can say. It really is. And she was a big collector of art, and her husband, Rick, still lives in the house, and he just exits out. So when we come, we turn up with a bunch of tourists, and you actually can go through with her housekeeper, will guide you through and tell you stories. So Yes, everyone will love Colin Mccully. And there's also, that's why I was holding up that book, there are some original books still left at the end of the tour. They have a book store set up out there, and they've actually been signed by Colin. So they're running out, but there are some really old ones. So I've actually got one that's got a signature from there. And as you can see, going a little bit yellow and everything because of many of those years. So yes, how could I forget that one? Thanks, Tan.
And a true icon of Australian writing history, that's for sure. So that's very special to have that experience available. Yeah, wonderful. Tanya, going back to you, I guess we haven't really orientated our guests as to exactly where Norfolk Island sits. So could you give us a bit of a geography lesson, please?
Well, I don't know the exact distance, but I guess we're situated between Australia and New Zealand. So when you visit Norfolk, you kind of fly over Lord Howe. So flying time with Air New Zealand from Sydney and Brisbane, it's approximately 2.5 hours. The flights leave from the international terminal. And yeah, look, it's probably the shortest overseas flight that anyone would take. And once you're here, the island is only 5 miles by 3 or 8 by 5K, but because it was formed by a volcano, it's very hilly in part, so it feels a lot bigger once you're here. But it is small in that you can pack so much in a day. So we are off the southeast coast of Australia and subtropical. So we're a little bit different to the South Pacific Islands up towards Fiji, in that we don't get the extreme heat and we don't get the extreme cold. I personally think Norfolk only has 2 seasons, but the advantage there is in summer, you can still have a game of golf in the middle of the day and you're not going to be, totally, hot and bothered from it. So we have a very pleasant all year round climate. And yeah, there's so many things that are familiar for Australian visitors, obviously the language and the currency, but then it is so different in that we have our own language and traditions and cultures. But time and time again, when people visit us, they're like, oh, we've got to come back again. There's so much to see and do, or they just come back and, chill out for a little bit longer. So, it's literally down the road. It's just beyond the horizon. It's such a short flight, and you make a holiday on Norfolk to what you want. So you can go into Bounty Escapes and, book up every day with their amazing tours and things, or you can mix it up and just have some time out, do what you like. There's, I can honestly say, even in the busy season, you never have to queue, or there's no trouble with parking, and the cows roam around the road and you wave to everybody as they pass. So in a little way, having said that, you may feel like you're stepping back in time, but we are a mix of quirky and things done slowly, but then we have great places to stay, like David was saying, Ocean Breeze are these amazing cottages. We have beautiful food. We have, really modern cafes and restaurants. So it's actually kind of difficult, I find, sometimes to talk to people about, because there's so much here for everybody, for all ages, and you just have to get here. You just have to hop on the plane and get here.
Fantastic.
And I think the main thing too, it's so safe and clean. That's comments we get all the time. I mean, we don't lock our cars or our homes, and people go, they just can't believe how friendly it is. It's like stepping back in to the 50s, where people actually said hello and cared and may help you if they see you struggling, with something, or you're a bit lost, we'll pull over and say, oh, where are you trying to head to? And we'll point you in the right direction. And that really is special, with that being safe and clean.
Sounds fantastic. Might jump to David quickly. David, as a relatively new resident over on Norfolk Island, what are some of the key things that you would recommend to friends to come and visit and experience?
Well, Tan touched on it briefly, but the weather here is amazing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tan and Sue Ellen, but the maximum temperature in summer is around 26, 27. So, you know, it's always very pleasant. It doesn't get that cold in winter. The local food is amazing. I'm not a fisherman, but, you know, you're only one step away from, you know, everyone knows everyone on Norfolk. So my definition of fishing is going to the jetty when the fish is in, and you get fresh filleted kingfish and, you know, trumpeter, red emperor, sweetlip, I think they call it in Queensland. You know, fruit and veg. There's not much fruit, which is, you know, one of the downside, but the veg that we grow here is amazing. We have a food festival once a year in November, which, you know, the food that the restaurants and some of the locals produce is, you know, first class. It's just a very relaxed place to visit. You know, you can dive into history, you can dive into activities. There's surfing, golf, tennis, bike riding. You know, I think that you know, one of the things that the local council is doing is looking to set up some mountain bike tracks through the national parks, which will be fantastic. And, you know, like Sue Ellen said, we don't lock anything. I leave my wallet and my laptop and, you know, in the car with the window down and the keys in the ignition.
I must look out for your vehicle.
It's just exceptionally unique.
Yeah. We just had a question from one of our listeners. Can you hire bicycles just to get around the island, or is it too up and down, or is it easy to ride around on bikes?
You can, but as Dave and I were just talking before, you definitely need a car. It's very hilly. However, you can hire bikes. And also one place has electric bikes that you can hire as well if you need that little bit of help up the hill.
Awesome. Thanks, Glenn. I just saw you answering that as well online for us, which was fantastic. Actually, Glenn, I've got a question for you. If we're not controlled by COVID and air access is back to usual, can Australians go from Australia to Norfolk and then on to New Zealand?
It is possible. So up until March this year, there was a small airline running out of New Zealand on a Friday, for which you could, yes, come out here one way, then go on to New Zealand and then fly back to Australia from New Zealand. So yes is the answer if we get back to normal.
When, not if.
We will.
Yeah.
It was an airline called Chatham Airlines flying out of New Zealand.
Okay. Thank you for that. All right. Now, one thing I noted in my research is that you're on the World Heritage List for the Kingston and Arthasville Historic Site. Sue Ellen, do you want to tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, we are, and it's quite unique for us to be for such a little place. There is so much history. People come and they just don't realise, and with our ruins and our buildings, that you can actually go in and touch the walls and things like that. I mean, not that they probably want me to tell you that, the museum and carver people. However, you can. They're living people. We have offices in them. People are working in there. So we are, and they're actually looking to, I had a meeting with the head of Carver last week, and he is coming up with some amazing ideas, Martin, and he is wanting it to be enjoyed even more by tourists from there. Tan, I don't know whether you want to expand on that, but it's really exciting to hear some more of the things, and he's incorporating local language into the signs and things like that as well. So Tan, if you wanted to share a bit more on that.
Look, totally what Sue Ellen's saying, and, you know, the Kingston area being World Heritage listed, it's definitely something we're very proud of and lucky to have. The site is where the beaches are and the golf course and the museums and everything, picnic areas. There's no barriers, there's no cost. As Sue Ellen said, it's a living site that everyone gets to enjoy, the tourists and the visitors. And I always have to say this because it's another little notch on our belt, I guess. So the World Heritage Site is under the Australian Convict Site group. So there's 11 of them, which includes Port Arthur and Fremantle and all of those other sites. But Norfolk is actually the oldest of the 11. So when the convict site closed on Norfolk, that's when they were pardoned and moved to Tassie. So out of those 11 Australian convict sites, we are actually the oldest. And you can Google Kingston World Heritage Site or Carver, the Arthasville Historical Site, and it's always is noted that the Georgian buildings are just some of the best from all of those 11 sites, and we have a team that are continually restoring them. We're very proud of it, and visitors, you just go back to the site every day.
Glenn, happy for you to give us a brief history if you like. Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, sorry, I'd come in late, so I didn't know whether everyone did, but I just wanted to sort of talk everyone through, because we've crisscrossed on from the convict history into the island culture, and so I just wanted to put it in perspective for everyone. So Norfolk Island was discovered in 1774 by Captain Cook, and in his notes back to England, he suggested the island might be a good place for them to settle when they, or for the British to take over, because there was pines here they could use for pine trees and flax they could use for sail making. So when the first fleet was sent out in 1788, the ship, the Sirius, actually went straight on from Sydney out to Norfolk. So Norfolk was settled by the convicts just 23 days after Sydney, and the first convict settlement here on island was actually like a farm. So they had convicts here, but they were sort of more so freetless even, and they used to send goods and supplies back to Sydney, and that is what we call the first settlement. Now, prior to that, and when they arrived, they actually discovered that there had been Polynesians here prior to that, maybe as early as 4,000 years ago, so a fair while. But there was still evidence left when they arrived. So we say there's essentially 4 settlements. So the first one's the Polynesian settlement. The second one is when they settled Norfolk as part of the Australian settlement. And then that went through to 1813, and then they closed that settlement. There was actually, the Sirius was wrecked here on the island, and it caused big problems to the settlements in New South Wales. And so they closed the island completely. After a number of, and they actually destroyed everything that was to do with that first convict settlement. So they were very scared that the French would come down and take over. So they destroyed everything, left it. After a number of years, they decided to reopen Norfolk just as a penal settlement. So in 1825, they reopened Norfolk as a penal settlement and a prison. And so the buildings that are existing today, the ones they can see behind you, are Georgian buildings from that settlement, and some of the best examples of that Georgian buildings anywhere in the world, actually. And that settlement, 1825, went through to 1855, when for a number of reasons they closed the convict penal settlement. It was mostly to do with the harshness of the settlement. They were getting criticised about how bad it was getting over here, and certain commandants and all sorts of things. So they closed the penal settlement. At the same time, on the other side of the world, the Mutiny on the Bounty happened. Just prior to that, the Pitcanners, not just prior to that, 1789. But the Pitcanners were looking for somewhere to live. They were under British rule by then. Queen Victoria and the British government at the time decided, with Norfolk closing, Pitcanners, essentially they were outgrowing Pitcairn Island. So Pitcairn Island's much smaller than Norfolk. It's about 1 kilometre by 2. Norfolk is about 5 kilometres by 8 kilometres. So both pretty small, but they're way smaller. They were outgrowing that settlement, and so they decided to shift all of the Pitcairn Islanders to Norfolk Island. And so that's seen now as the 4th settlement and the current settlement.
Okay, so a lot of the descendants come from that period, do they now?
So when we talk about being Norfolk Islanders and descendants, it's the descendants of the original bounty mutineers, and then coming to Norfolk after the convict settlements.
Fantastic. That was really interesting. Thank you for that. It's I guess it's just, it is a place that I haven't learned a lot about, so I found it really fascinating talking to everyone. Our time's quickly coming to a close, so I might just whip around to everyone again, just for one more key insight to Norfolk Island and why people should come. So we start with Tanya.
Look, it is so close to Australia. It's so easy to get to. It's an amazing place. You can do as much as you like or as little as you want. There is so much history and culture here. The people are so friendly. You feel like you might be going back in time, but there's some great places to eat and things to do, fishing and golf, bushwalking. The environment is clean and green. And I'll just quickly say, other than the World Heritage Site, we also are registered as a dark sky town. So for stargazing in the evenings, we just don't have any light pollution at all. And we also have a protected marine park. So our oceans, the snorkeling, swimming, diving and fishing, you can't get any better. And we'd love to see you all here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, David, you would like to chip in?
I suppose just to summarise, the air is clean, the water's clean, great food. You do as much as you want or as little as you want. Nothing is more than 10 or 15-minute drive away. It's unique. That's the only way to describe it. It's it's part of Australia, but it's certainly got its own culture, its own heritage. Its own way of doing things. It's just, the most wonderfully relaxed place.
Fantastic. Sue Ellen?
I think some people have started to use the logo. Norfolk is your trip overseas, but you're not going overseas as such. And I know, like at the moment, everyone's not knowing with the COVID thing that the world's closed. So come and enjoy something in your own backyard. You leave the international airport, however, it is a domestic flight, so you get to go through a different lane and you quickly rush through to us. So come and especially reset. I always say to people, come here and just reset your life and start again and just relax. It's amazing. You've got to come.
Does sound wonderful. Glenn, we'll let you have the last word, Glenn.
Oh, sure. Okay, then. So I will say, I've been in tourism since 1989 here on Island through various roles at tourist bureaus and running airlines and tour companies and now within the travel agency. And so I've seen a lot of people travel to Norfolk, and I've also run a hotel. I've seen a lot of people come to Norfolk. Norfolk is one of those places that satisfies 99% of people. They can always find something to do here. And the general response to everyone's holiday here is, I did not spend enough time. So that's sort of affirmation back to visitors that you certainly won't make a mistake by coming to Norfolk and visiting, that's for sure.
A lot of people that are return visitors as well. So once they've found paradise here, they actually bring back other members of the family or their friends, and we see people who come back every year and they just love it. They said, why wouldn't we come back?
Sounds amazing. Well, just on behalf of Wild Diaries and myself, I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us, especially after hours of you guys over there. It's a bit later than what we are here. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you all and learning a lot about Norfolk Island. So stay safe, stay well, and for everyone listening, put it on your bucket list and let's get organised over there.
Definitely.
Thanks,
Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline.
Everyone, take care.